Hello and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Josue Peralta. I'm here joined by my buddy Mike and my sister Abby.
Hello.
This season, we are talking about issues and realities of dating in your late 20s. And today we're going to be talking about realistic versus unrealistic expectations of dating, in your late 20s, early 30s, and what that looks like. So I have a question for you. How would you guys say your preferences have changed as you've gotten older? I know personally, I saw more women as beautiful, like different kinds of women as beautiful, whereas before I didn't. I used to be exclusively into white women per se, and that's obviously no longer the case. And I'm pretty happy about that. Now, what would you guys say is something that your preferences have changed as you've gotten older,
Um,
or have they stayed the same? That'd be interesting.
well, mine's definitely changed. I think I'm more of a kind of like a I'm kind of like more. I feel like my experience is kind of what you would just see in general as you get older. Like as a young guy, you're just pure physical looks. That's
Okay,
all
yeah.
that matters. Then over time, when you like get older and more mature, and you care about the world, like you look at your world like differently from when you're a child to as an adult, and you're more concerned about things. Like you're more concerned about just making a life, and then if you're a Christian on top of that, your spiritual life, you mature in that area, and you may care about like social values and social issues. Like I'm very well like not super, but like I'm invested to what goes on around me, like not just in my own like life, personal life, but
You
just
mean
in the
do you mean like
what
politics?
yeah, politics, like the church, like everything,
Okay.
because we're like we're in this world, and as a Christian, like I want to stand up for things that are right, and if I vote, I want to vote for things that I believe aligns with my morals that come from the Bible and stuff like that. So I feel like when I meet a girl now, all of that is put into how I view just anybody, but just like specifically a girl if I'm interested in her. Like
Yeah.
if I talk to her and she's pretty, like and that's like usually how it always goes. Like if I see a cute girl, I don't care. I don't know anything about her. I'm just gonna want to talk to her. But if I talk to her and then she has like no interest and stuff like that, like she's just kind of very just like
Like an airhead.
shallow or maybe like ditzy, doesn't really concern herself with those things, I'm gonna walk away.
Yeah.
She's not gonna seem as attractive. Where if I go to a girl and I maybe not think she's so attractive at first, she may be just like basic cute, just your average cute girl. But like she's like super like, oh yeah, I'm super into that. I don't believe this issue is right. Yeah, like I support what this says on the Bible. This is how I view this scripture.
You're all in.
Man, like that girl's like she's one of the most beautiful girls I ever met.
Mm-hmm. What about you,
I
Dax?
think for me, my preferences have changed in the sense I feel like back then I was more rigid about I want this, this, and this, like in looks and everything. But now it's more flexible. There's more areas of gray, areas to be
Mm-hmm.
curious about. Like physically, like my preferences have changed. Like I feel like back then, just as an example, like a clean shaven man a clean shaven man is always attractive. But like, I feel like now that I've gotten older, I've grown into like that whole facial hair situation. Which I like. So some areas like physically have changed, but I put more importance, even more importance in character and to personality and to values that we share. Whereas back then it's like if you're good looking and you're talking to me, that's all that matters. But now it's like, no, it's not that all that matters. It's like, yeah, sure, we're talking, we can have a great time, but it's like, give me more.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like a lot of us who haven't put a lot of time into it or into thinking or what have you tend to fall into sticking to the thing that we've always liked and not being flexible and wanting like the perfect person, right? Like, well, if she's
Mm-hmm.
not tall, I don't want her
Hmm.
because I want tall babies to play in the NBA or
Hmm.
something like
Mm-hmm.
that. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we can, the older we get, run into the danger of sticking to wanting a certain type of partner
Hmm.
that may or may not exist, and then you
Mm-hmm.
closing yourself off to people who are there,
Yeah.
Hmm.
who would be good for you and who you otherwise wouldn't consider. And I think that's wrong.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I think like the biggest thing that happens and that changes as the older you get is that your physical beauty changes,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
Like
Like,
as the older, go ahead.
I think men, it takes them a little longer to mature into their like physical aspect. Because I
What does
feel
that mean?
I feel like a guy who's 20, even if he's like got a pretty face, he's still got that baby look.
Okay.
Whereas if
Hmm.
you fast forward like till he's 30, he looking grown, he looking mature. Like whereas
Hmm.
I think just like women mature mentally faster, I think women grow into their woman like physique faster.
Yes.
Definitely.
I mean, women peak physically faster or sooner, I should say,
Yeah.
than men do.
Yeah.
But I think that's also yes and no. There's like a social
I
construct
mean,
to it.
it's not up to you, right? It's up to the guys.
Well,
Um,
I'm just saying my 2 cents on it. That's all.
I'm not pointing you out exactly. I'm just saying in general. It's usually the guys who choose this. But that said, I feel like there are some guys out there who are still like, well, beauty, like I said, that definitely changes when it comes to your later 20s. Like I know for me, it was like I used to have, or my family used to kind of like make fun of me because I used to only like skinny women or something like that.
You still kind
You
of like
still
that. What are you
do?
talking about?
Okay, so I wouldn't
Anthony, you're
consider
super skinny.
her skinny, but
Well, it's because your skinny is anorexic at that point. That's not
Yeah,
that
exactly.
healthy.
Like
see
she's on. She
see
needs an
like
IV.
To the
that's
world, she's skinny.
okay. To me, I would say that that's an area I've grown where it's like my
You've
my
gone from
preferences
anorexic
have changed.
skinny to healthy
Okay,
skinny.
stop saying anorexic skinny because that's not true. That's what you saying it as, but
I mean,
Right.
all right.
Michael.
I'm just saying to me.
Yes, you're right.
But
You're right. It's your experience.
yes, it is my experience. But I will say, like, for example, my expectations is like I usually wasn't into like I've mentioned before, I usually wasn't into Hispanic women.
You weren't at all.
I think I mentioned that on the podcast. I think there's only one Hispanic woman that I was into, and that was Matilda, and I'm no longer interested in her. How do you guys feel like the expectations that guys have, for example, expectations the guy have of women changes the older that you get?
How does it change?
I feel like there are some guys who are stubborn and are looking for a 19-year-old girl's body in a 28, 29, 30-year-old, and I think that's unrealistic.
Yeah. No, I definitely. Um,
Would you put yourself in that category or
well, I think with the advent of social media, we just have like so many of these unrealistic expectations. And you mentioned porn in
Mm-hmm.
another episode. I think porn has degraded a lot of what we think women should look like and how they should be in, these like in other situations and stuff like that. It's very unrealistic. Yeah, for you to expect like everyone to have like just the tight waist and the big hips and all that stuff.
Which is
Most people
unrealistic
don't even have that. But
because there's different
even the
body
thing, even
types.
the women that you assume have that, you know, they don't like a lot of clothes fit on you a certain way and make you
yes?
look a certain way. But
Mm-hmm.
then outside of that, that's not really how the body is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
You know,
different body types, the way you choose to dress.
Would you say for women that the expectations have to be different in regards to like men usually getting chubbier if they don't take care of their health? Because that's something I put in my notes. Like, if you didn't put effort in your body, it's going to show in your late 20s. Like, this is when it shows.
In your late 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does definitely show. Weight,
Is that
getting
something?
bald,
Yeah.
receding hairline.
Hmm.
That's definitely a thing. I don't know,
Is that
cause
something you'd say, like, would you be willing to, or have you always been into like super fit dudes, or would you be willing to be like, okay, you know what, if I'm like if he's a little bit chubby, like I can live with that.
I mean, I would take a dad bod over like
An
a
Adonis, a chiseled
bodybuilder,
Adonis.
a bodybuilder, cause like their muscles are hard. They're not comfy. So I think it's not like I would want a freaking Adonis, like you're saying. I would just want someone who's healthy, who's got muscles, who can lift me up. If
Wait,
he's
hold on. You want muscles, but not too much muscles.
Okay, but here's the thing: a lot of people, a lot of guys take stimulants and stuff, right, Michael?
Yes.
To like build up all those muscles. What I'm talking about is
So you want someone natty,
a guy who
natural.
a guy, like, if he does take stimulants or whatever, or what, if that's his thing, that's fine. But all I'm saying is someone who just goes to the gym, he's healthy, he can lift me up.
And that's a
Like,
non-negotiable. You mentioned that multiple times.
what, lift
He
me
has
up?
to lift you up.
Yes, of course.
Fair enough. Mike, does she have to be lift upable for you?
Honestly, it's kind of going to your point. Like, I think as I've gotten older, I've definitely gotten into. I've seen beauty in like bigger women,
Okay,
like
yeah,
more than I did
interesting.
before. And
Hmm.
my bigger is a lot bigger than your.
Yeah,
Evidently.
his
You know,
bigger
I
is.
still like want to have shape. Look like you kind of. I don't. I don't want just like
Be
big,
crude.
big.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But like.
Ron's just
I
laughing
still,
over there.
I feel like I've over the last like couple years, like I've seen some very like, what most people would say, yeah, she's a big girl. Like I've seen a lot of beauty in those girls more recently, and they seem to be more chill, down to earth. I don't know what it
Yeah,
is.
a lot of them is. They have
Yeah,
like a
just
certain seasoning to them.
yeah, they're funny. A lot of times, So
So
yeah.
then does that mean, I mean, alternatively, and you may have not thought of this, but like you wouldn't even consider like a skinnier girl?
Well, I still find like to me, if you're cute, you're cute. I mean, like I
Fair.
don't want like bone skinny. Like I don't want that. I don't want to. I
Okay.
don't want to be seeing rib cages and stuff. But like I think I have like seen the beauty in bigger women like more so like recently than I would have when I was probably like 16, 15.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
but that kind of goes against like the standards of beauty today because standards of beauty is like slim.
Not at the
You know,
current
what's
moment.
interesting? I think
No, it
BBLs are
is
getting
because
like
well,
went like super popular, and then I think they're going back out of style.
it's I think people are starting to like trend to like bigger now. I think because they want to be more inclusive, but like all the models, it would always be.
No one cares about inclusivity like that
Well,
anymore.
no, but I'm serious.
It's dead.
That's why they got rid
DEI.
they got rid of like Victoria's Secret
That's
and
it.
stuff now, and
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
all the models, like my mom always would have me watch American like or
Next top
Next Top
model.
Model with her, and
Oh, that was a good show.
all those girls were like always like
Always
super
skinny,
slim, yeah,
Yeah.
super tall.
and super skinny, super
Well, I
tall.
mean, being skinny has its functions when it comes to modeling, right? Because you need clothes to look good on you.
Why can't they look good on big girls?
They look good
I think they
on
look better on
everyone.
big girls.
I mean,
too.
Abby sent me a reel of like this super fit Dominican dude, and he had the worst fit of all time. And he's like, "Listen, put the plate down, go to the gym, because at least, because if at least if you look good, what do you say? Cualquier trapo se te ve bien."
Yeah,
Or
if you
something
look
like
good,
that.
whatever you put on is gonna look good.
Yes. So Mike's like, I agree. So that's physical beauty. Is there anything on physical beauty? Any other unrealistic expectations that you guys have seen that you're like, probably as Adventists we should probably stay away from, or anything like that? In regards to physical beauty and like late 20s, early 30s, or
I mean, I think we should stay away from constantly comparing it to non-Christian standards, using
fair.
social media a lot, because I've heard the term of like Christian guys saying, "Oh, like, oh, I don't like the girls in my church because they just don't try, or like
I wonder what that means.
they're not pretty enough, or it's just kind of like, I feel like a lot of times it's a cop out of saying, I just don't want a Christian girl, because like, what does trying even mean? That she doesn't wear like the freaking supermodel makeup like you see in social media, that she doesn't wear like the low V-neck shirts. Like, I feel like as a woman, as a single woman, I experienced that in the church, where it's like guys want a Christian girl, but with the body of a sinner, you know?
Amen. I'm kidding. That's not.
So it's like, not
And the
say,
dress. And
yeah,
the dress and the accoutrement
yeah.
of yeah.
And I mean, that's wrong with me to say the body of a sinner. What I'm trying to say is, um, that like, is just, we need to watch ourselves where we're taking our expectations from. Is it from the Bible or is it from social media? A lot of the times, I'm guilty of it with men too. You take it from social media, but I think in the Bible we find the things that we need, even for physicality, right? Our body's the temple of the Holy Spirit. We should be aiming to eat right. We should be aiming to sleep. All these things that
Yes.
make us look good.
Yes.
Hmm.
I agree.
I believe God, when he created Eve for Adam, she was probably the most beautiful woman. I know for a fact she's the most
She was the
beautiful
most
woman
beautiful one of
ever
her.
lived. I'm sure she had a very nice shape, nice everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so God, like, he understands that. And I think,
Yeah. And at the end
yeah,
of the day, we're not all tens, right? We're not all the ugliest person ever, but it's more of like, are you working with what you got?
And are you maximizing what you got?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you owning it? Because there's people out there that aren't that attractive, but they own what they got and they rock it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
The confidence is more
yeah,
attractive
is more
than,
attractive than anything else. And then you
yeah,
have all these pretty girls, pretty men who
feel insecure.
are insecure and they just wear crappy clothes. And yeah, they have all the materials to succeed. And you would think, oh, they get everybody, but they don't.
But they don't.
they may get everybody, but they can't keep.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
that
true,
too.
right? Because they
Yeah.
don't have a personality or
They're
they
just
don't.
shallow. There's not much to figure else out about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awful.
Or you just want them for their body and you don't give them a chance to prove themselves.
What
Yeah.
are some other unrealistic expectations when it comes to dating in your late 20s? I would say, even in the Adventist church, would you say it's realistic to expect virginity?
Yes.
Mike?
I mean, I don't know.
I
I was gonna say
know
yeah,
you mentioned this to me before.
but I don't know. I mean, it's just like it's society is society has changed, or it's gone more away from abstinence to
But the
just
Bible stays the same.
yeah, I know, but
Yeah.
I'm just talking about society.
Yeah, that's
Is
true.
that a
But
deal
you,
There's
breaker
a
for
huh?
you? Like if you in a prior relationship was intimate with
Is
this
it a
girl?
deal breaker for me?
Yeah.
It is not a deal breaker for
Okay.
me.
But you're saying, and I agree. I think it's still realistic
For
to
me,
expect or
naturally, it
desire.
would be, I would, if
ideal.
I am talking to a Christian man, I would assume that he is a virgin until told otherwise.
Yes, I think that's a fair assumption too.
It depends.
And the concept of how we define virginity can change as well.
Fair,
I think
true.
it's always been. I think to me, it's always the same. But I mean, there. I mean, I guess in certain instances, but I mean, it's by biblical definition of virginity.
Yeah.
That's what I
What is
go
the
by.
biblical definition? No penetration?
Yep, pretty much. Just, but
But there's so much there's an emotional aspect to virginity. There's, I don't know, topic for
it's
another
just a
time,
pure
but
physical act of sex. That's what it is.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the mind is a very powerful thing. What about porn?
So you watch porn, you're not a virgin no more. Is that what you're saying?
You've gone there.
That's not.
Well,
That
like,
doesn't
because,
make
like,
you
for
not a
example, like
virgin.
the Bible says, if
Lust after a woman.
you have sinned in your heart.
So then, is that person not a virgin then too?
Hmm?
Is that person not a
I
virgin
didn't
then
say
too?
that. I guess what I'm trying to say is that there is a spiritual and
Of
there's a
course.
physical aspect to virginity that if you cross that line in that certain aspect, I think you
There's
wouldn't be
also a
considered a
physical.
virgin anymore.
There's a physical. I mean, I get what you're
Like
saying.
there's the physical aspect of like I haven't slept with a man, but like there's like a mental aspect too, because it is proven that the mind can't differentiate between an action and a thought. So
It's
if
true.
you're watching porn, in your mind, you're doing that, right? You're not doing it physically
Your brain registers it as if it was the same.
as a sexual act.
Yeah.
But in your mind, you still know it's porn. You still know it's not real.
Yeah, but like I just think it's deeper. It's deeper
I get
than
what you're
just
saying, but
no penetration.
Fair. I agree. What are some other, would you say, unrealistic expectations of dating in your late 20s? I guess unrealistic, and then let's move them to realistic. I'll add one to the list, which is I think that there's a huge increase of people with no dating history. So I think it's unrealistic nowadays to date somebody who knows what they're doing in a relationship. I think it's unrealistic now to be like, I mean, neither of you have dated. The people I talked to at the AYP conference, a lot of them had never dated either. So I think
I
there's a
can't go there.
lot
That's my
of
type of people. No.
there's a lot of like, what do you call it, rawness and just I don't know what I'm doing this
Mhm.
to when it comes to dating in the Adventist church.
But there's so many aspects of, because like I know that once you get in a relationship, there's nuances and things that you learn together. But I also know that we are in relationships with our family, our friends, and those are all, they all have aspects that you take into a romantic relationship. So the fact of communicating, you can't say, I don't know how to communicate with a partner. Like, how do you like how did you learn communication in your family? How did you practice it with your friends?
Yep.
So yeah, there's things that you wouldn't know because you're not in that intimacy aspect. But
Mm-hmm.
there's got to be a lot that you do know about, like the core things of just maintaining a relationship: communication, commitment, respect. These are all things that you have to develop before, or that you should develop before being in a romantic relationship. Because that's when if you don't develop, then you take those bad habits into your relationship. Lack of respect, abuse, like miscommunication, like you just carry it into a romantic relationship. So I think you can be pretty ready to a certain point.
Okay. What are some other unrealistic expectations that you're seeing?
That whoever you're dating has their whole life figured out.
That's true.
It's not realistic today,
Hmm.
especially today, because like I think I mentioned this in preview. So like for the average person to have like they I forget who did the study, but they were trying to figure out like what you would need to have the American dream.
Hmm.
And that's always been, the reason why people want to come here, the thing that we always try to boast about.
Yeah.
Now, the American dream,
Husband, wife,
I don't know if
two,
people
two and
believe
a
that
half
anymore.
kids,
Yeah,
house, white picket
husband,
fence,
you're married,
dog.
you got 3 kids, nice yard, dog, yada yada yada. They say it costs about $200,000 to do that, and so that means you gotta have
So
like a
much.
really nice job, that's just household income. It's very hard to do that these days,
Super hard.
especially because, the cost of living's gone up so much and minimum wage hasn't. So,
Yeah.
I think
a lot of
wages in
people,
general, not just minimum wage.
yeah, my wages in general just haven't
They
gone
haven't
up.
caught up with
Yeah,
inflation.
and just the cost of living, like groceries are super expensive now. Like it's hard to like, you know, sometimes be intentional as much as you want to because you just don't know if you can even afford to like have it. Because I've had that where like, man, like I would really love to date this person, but I don't know if I'm gonna be ready to, because I've always said I want to date for at least like at most a year and then
At
just get
most a year.
at
Wow.
most a year and a half maybe and
Okay.
then get married. You know, I think that's enough time to figure if someone is good for you, you know.
Yeah.
I
Um,
think the older you get, that's enough time.
yeah, I mean, if as long as you're more intentional, but like outside of that, am I gonna be able to do it? You know, so
Mm.
that's the thing, because I want to have kids one day, stuff like that. But also I have career aspirations, so I either have to go with the career aspirations or decide not to in order to, have my American dream that I want to have, So I don't know. Can't expect
Mm.
the person you're dating to be like, oh yeah, I have a great job. I love what I do. I can do this for the next 30 years. Let's get married type
So
thing.
then, if it's unrealistic to expect that, why would you date somebody who doesn't know where they're going?
Well, that's the thing. That's the struggle I was mentioning. It's just like you could almost like not date or choose not to date because you don't know eventually like what you're gonna be like in the next 3 years,
Hmm.
you
Mm.
know.
Doc?
So
I think an unrealistic expectation, especially now more than ever, is that within the church that the other person believes what I believe, and just because they're
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Adventist. And as you get older, especially like if you've grown in the church, your views on the Bible change with time, right? And I think to assume that the other person sees it how you see it, especially now in the time where there's so many discussion and possibly like controversies on different stances on the Bible. I think it's unrealistic to just assume the other person's gonna believe what you believe.
mm,
Um, so it's like more of coming from a place of curiosity.
Fair. I think, well, I guess going back to you, what do you think? The Bible says to not be unequally yoked. What does equally yoked look like then?
To me, equally yoked is another Adventist male who is seeking to glorify God in his daily life today, that doesn't, for me, it doesn't mean that they have been 28 years in the church as I have. I think that's unfair. That's unrealistic.
Okay.
But more of it's someone, are they seeking to glorify God daily today? And if we are doing that same thing, I think that's equally yoked. We might not have the same amount of knowledge because we might not have been in the church as amount of time, but are we both seeking to glorify God today?
Yeah, the verse actually says, when you said unequally yoked, it says 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. It says, "Be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. So what fellowship have righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion have light with darkness?" So like it's not just like having different opinions, but like you can't be yoked with someone who doesn't like accept Jesus Christ, or their
Yeah.
life doesn't show it,
I
right?
mean, but I think
But
there can
but
be
within Adventism, yeah,
I
there's
think there can be
there.
an unequally yokeness within it.
I know that's what I'm saying
Yes.
too. But I was just reading the Bible, because I think that's the main concern. But it also talks about righteousness and unrighteousness. So if someone is Adventist and let's say they, accept Jesus Christ, Spirit of prophecy, all that, but when it comes to Sabbath, they like to go out and they're not necessarily like, keeping the Sabbath the way
That says
the
on the Bible.
Bible tells us to, or the way is right.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to work.
I think it's also unrealistic to expect that people haven't made mistakes in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say somebody went to jail and they're
Mm-hmm.
a convict, they're an
Yeah.
ex-con. I don't
Ex-con.
think it's unrealistic to be like, oh, this person has never made a mistake in their life. You're almost 30 years old. What are you talking about? People have gone through. So people have made mistakes.
Yeah, we've made mistakes. We're not
We've
perfect
made
either.
mistakes. We're not
We made a
perfect.
mistake like that.
Some mistakes have bare consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking like mistakes that are like life changing. Have you ever made a mistake like that? And
Yeah,
are you
that's what I'm
willing to
saying. The
accept
bigger.
someone who has made a mistake like that? Like maybe
That's a
someone who's
question for
had an
everybody.
abortion and you found out, or maybe someone, yeah, like you said, is an ex-convict,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe someone who's, man, I don't freaking know what else is like a big thing
Yeah.
that you would hope someone would tell you eventually.
Yeah.
I
I don't
think
know.
God changes people,
Yes.
and um we can't condemn them for their past, just like we wouldn't want to be written off for their past, but more of where are you now?
Like if
What
you
are
had
you
a
what do you do?
OnlyFans,
Well, yeah,
would you
but
date
like
would you date a girl who had an OnlyFans before?
you wouldn't? Even if she came to Jesus, gave her life to
That's
Christ, and no
great.
longer does that,
I would
you
be
wouldn't be
so
able to
happy
live with
for
her
her.
past.
I mean, it's not. I'm not even looking at that. I'm just looking at like
Her
her
body's
stuff is
all
all
over
over
the
the
internet.
internet.
Yeah, but she's different now.
I know. I'm not saying
She's
she
a new
isn't. I'm not saying she
creation.
isn't. But I'm
If
just
she's
like, it's just like just,
Yeah, that's a
you
mental
can't
hookup
you can't you
shake-up
can't
for
like
you.
erase everything off the internet. It's still there. I mean, that's a really bad like consequence of her actions. It's an amazing story that she came back, but like I can't look over that point. Like if
Okay.
I'm walking around with my wife and people know her as an OnlyFans girl. Although an OnlyFans girl that came to Christ, because I'm sure that would cause a big stir in the Christian world, but it's just like her body's still up there. I actually follow a girl who's on Instagram who was a big OnlyFans girl, made lots of money, hundreds of thousands of followers, and she came to Christ. It's an
And
interesting
she's not
story.
worthy of
Not
someone.
not
I'm not saying
not
she's not worthy
Michael.
of love, but I couldn't do
She's
it.
not worthy of Michael, at least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my
Mhm.
dad would be like, "No, son."
Yeah, but that's not your dad. You got to live with her, not your
I know,
pops.
but
Yeah.
still, your family also goes into, when you're gonna marry someone, your family also has a say
So
too.
a couple weeks ago, do you remember when we went out with Barry,
Yeah.
and I think we were having a conversation of like how many bodies is too many bodies. Do you remember that?
Hmm.
Like, is that unrealistic? Is that realistic
Yeah, that's
to
a legitimate question.
expect, to think about, or
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
does that go the same for women?
How many bodies is too many bodies?
Yeah. Like, is it unrealistic to be like, I don't want my girl to have zero bodies, or my guy to
I
have
think it
zero
is
bodies?
unrealistic. It's a preference. I think you can have your preferences, but you can still have a preference and still be unrealistic because
Yeah.
of life, and
Yeah.
life happens, right? That's what we were
Yes.
talking about. As we get older, we have experiences. So, but you can still have your preference. Michael has his preference. No
Be
OnlyFans
it
girls
realistic or
that come to
not.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Do I think it's unrealistic? I think it's unrealistic because
To not date an OnlyFans girl?
she is not an OnlyFans girl anymore,
She
Michael.
was.
She was.
I'm not. I know. I'm
So
not just saying that, but I'm just saying that that's not unrealistic
Okay.
to want to date a porn star.
But like
I
for
guess
you,
for
for
me
example, and guys,
and a
like
guy,
do you have a number where it's
do
like
I have a number?
if he has 10 bodies, I'm
I don't
out.
have a number. No, because
Nice.
I'm a firm believer of what I'm saying, that like if the person has changed and they've given love to Christ, like their number is their number. That's their past. That's their monster they're living with. If they're living in the present here with me, like, and we're both seeking to pursue God, just like God is not condemning them and God has redeemed them, who am I to hold them
Yeah,
for
but
that?
your life choices, they can affect your future, like
They do, but we
your future
believe in
out.
the transforming power of
I
the
know,
gospel,
but it
Michael.
still has issues. And I'm speaking because I've talked to guys. I know a guy who's in triple digits,
Okay.
and
That's
he did a
awful.
lot of. He's a great guy, and I love
Mm-hmm.
the guy. And we talk all the time, but he's told me it's affected him.
I'm
And
not
he's been in
saying
a
it does.
long-term relationship, and he actually was unfaithful to his girlfriend.
I'm
And
not
because he said it was
saying,
too hard. And so it's actually prevented him from actually even wanting to marry her because they've been together for years. But it's because of his past, he doesn't want to hurt her. That's the type of
yeah.
risk you take.
But that's what I mean with saying, like, there's consequences. There's going to be, but those are his
Exactly.
consequences to bear. I will have to deal with the residual. Like, for example, in
You're gonna
in
have to bear those
Antillian,
consequences that he has too, though.
there was this woman pastor who she gave her testimony about the fact that she married a guy or whatever, and he had struggled with porn in the past, right? That shapes who he is now. But now, he's with God, he left that away. But she said that at a certain point he had a relapse, right? So she's willing to accept, like, it's her struggle now, in the sense that it's both of us working through this and it affects her. But at the end of the day, like, you're willing to accept his struggle because you love him and you're going to help him go to God. Now, if he's not working on it, that's a whole different
Mhm.
topic. But I still think that.
Porn isn't sex, though. It's not real sex. It's actually
Another
But
conversation
it's an
for
addiction.
another time.
it's an
Yeah.
addiction, but it's not even real sex. It's just all act. It's not even real. So it's just like I can't really equate sex to porn.
Going back
You
to
know what I mean?
expectations, though, I
But
have a
whatever.
friend who his parents counseled him to stay away from
Divorced.
women with divorced parents. Is that realistic or
I
unrealistic?
think that's
I think
unrealistic,
that's
especially
Super
these
unrealistic.
day now.
unrealistic.
There's
But
so much divorce going on.
but
Yeah.
there is.
I
I can
mean,
see.
I'm officially a divorced. My mom's divorced. Am
Yeah.
I damaged goods? No.
Yeah.
Well, but your divorce came after, and I don't want to get into like too much specifics, but it came after while you were an adult. You know,
I
How
mean,
does
that
how
where
does
does
that change
it
things?
changed a
it does
lot
change
because
things.
if you're
Okay.
growing up in a household where there's an abusive relationship or a relationship that isn't good, you know,
Yeah.
that can affect you and how you maybe treat your future spouse or
Okay.
whatever. And there are statistics that show that now obviously I'm not saying this is because I believe that I wouldn't date someone if they came from a divorce home,
You
but
would not.
no, I didn't say it that way. I wouldn't have a problem dating someone who
You
came from a
wouldn't have a problem.
Okay.
no, yeah, I that's not a thing for me, but studies do show like your environment does shape
Yes, it
how
does.
you
View
act in the
relationships.
future. So
Yeah.
like if you came out of an abusive home, you didn't have like a good father figure or a good motherly figure, or you didn't have a good example of what a marriage should be. Yeah,
That's
you
what you're going
you
to emulate because that's what you
yeah,
saw.
and you
That's where the
can
importance of the personal work is being
yeah,
done,
yeah.
because there are lots of people that come from broken homes and
Hmm.
they decide to change and they make a difference in their new home. But
Hmm.
that was a conscious effort that they made. Now, if they're not making a conscious effort, they're going to emulate that broken home.
Yeah, but I'm just saying there is a risk. That's
Yes,
all I was saying.
there is a
You
risk.
know, so because I know a family, they're good friends of ours. Um, every woman in that family has a child
Out of
out of
wedlock.
wedlock at like a young age,
That's
Mm,
and
awful.
they're
That's
they're
sad.
they're in
Not
the church.
awful. I'm sorry.
It's sad
it's
though
sad.
because
It's
like
unfortunate.
most of them aren't even in with the baby daddy,
Oh
and
no.
it's just like, and they're in the church, they're Adventists,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
Would you guys say it's unrealistic to expect somebody who's on fire for God as opposed to somebody who just goes to church, does their devotional, but is not like zealous and is not like, actively doing something, but just like a regular go to church, do Bible study, do your lesson, and just go home?
I
For
think
Do
most
you think
people,
that's unreal?
I think it can be
It can be.
unrealistic in the sense that not everybody on fire for God looks the same,
Okay.
right? Because you have your Pauls, but then you also have your Nicodemuses, who it says he didn't show any fruit until after Jesus died. So after 3 years. So I think all of our missions are different at the core of who that person is, their daily life. Does it reflect Jesus? I think that's what's most important because the fire can look different. Not everybody's a Paul. Not everybody is. Some people are Barnabas.
what do you mean when you say not everybody's a Paul?
In a Paul, in the
Like
sense of like
like
a
at the pulpit
leader.
all the time,
Yeah.
being like heading things up.
Yeah, not everybody's a Paul, not everybody's a Peter. There's like Andrews. There's like they're more supporting characters. Not
But they were all
everybody is,
just they were all like disciples, and they all
and they were all on
spread the
fire for God,
gospel.
but in a different way.
I
I
know
guess
in a
that's what
different
I'm
way.
trying to
I
say.
wasn't sure if you were saying like, oh, they just didn't tell anybody about Jesus.
No, no, no,
Oh,
no.
okay, that's what
I
I
guess what I'm
think you were
trying to
saying.
say is they all did God's
Yeah,
mission
okay,
in
yeah,
a different
I
way.
get you.
So
Yeah.
as long it can be unrealistic
Mhm.
if your definition of on fire for God is very rigid and only the way that you see it, and that's the only way. That's when it can become unreal.
I think for me, um, I think it's unrealistic just because we know from like the Bible and just like is in general our experience, like most people don't really have that type of mentality when it comes to their spirituality and when it comes to like, ministry and stuff. Whereas me though, because of my parents and just the people that I've been around with, a lot of people I've seen have very close relationships with are also like very active in church or like very active in ministry, want to do things. Like, first of all, my parents, both of them, like my dad was a pastor for a small chance, but even after he became a teacher, he was always going and doing evangelism trips. He spent all over the world preaching people, baptizing people. He's a chaplain now. My mom, she was a choir leader and she ran BBS for our schools and stuff. And then you, Josue, you preach all the time. I preach all the time. Um, I know
So
when
do
I
you
used to
want a
hang,
girl like that?
yeah, genuinely like a girl because that's how I am. Like she's gonna have to be
So you
around
think it
that.
is realistic to want
For
to have somebody like
me,
that?
no, I'm saying it's unrealistic in general to think people are
That
like
it's
that.
your
But
preference.
that's what I would ideally
So
want.
even if it is unrealistic, you're not budging that preference. You want somebody who's zealous
Because
with it.
that's what I'm attracted to.
Okay.
Like I'm just attracted to someone who's like who wants to tell
Who's a
others about
leader?
who well not necessarily a leader, but who
Okay.
wants to tell others about Christ. I'm
And
attracted.
yeah.
I don't want to date someone who's just like, no, let's just go home. No, I don't want to, you know, do like door to door or no, I don't want to,
Sure.
whatever, whatever we're doing, I don't want to be involved. I can't, I have to be someone who wants to be involved
Yeah.
in any apps in any type of way. Ideally, I would love someone who's musical.
Is that a deal breaker?
No, not a deal breaker,
Not a
but
deal breaker.
ideally,
Ideally.
Yeah.
because I play two instruments
Yeah.
on the pianos for my church.
Yeah.
If
I
she
think
can sing, that'd be awesome.
I think it's unrealistic also to like
Not a
expect
deal breaker though.
somebody to like a lot of the same things you like, that lives life at the same pace you do and kind of mimics you in the way that you do things. Because you're limiting yourself to only yourself, like pretty much like a reflection of yourself. You're not opening yourself up to other kinds of complementary people that can
Mhm.
love you in a way that you're not expecting
Yeah.
or that you can't experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's unrealistic to want somebody who's just like you or
It's very
No, yeah.
self-centered, selfish.
I agree.
I mean,
It's like you're
I
just
agree.
looking for another you,
Yeah.
I would want someone who has definitely like shared interests, but not exactly
but they
like
don't have
me.
to be all of them,
No, I didn't say all
Right.
of them, but
right?
like definitely someone who, like I said, likes music, who
Mm-hmm.
likes to go out in nature.
Mm-hmm.
There's some areas that we have to like to do together,
Like
I
like
don't,
study the Bible,
yeah, like have
Yes.
like
good Bible
Jesus.
conversations on the Bible and stuff like that. Yeah, there has to be some of that. Like it can't just be like completely like,
Well, yeah, there's
no.
got to be the mutual ground.
Yeah. I don't think that's unrealistic, but not to have everything, you like. So
Yeah,
Fair
we've
enough.
talked a lot about unrealistic. What's realistic?
Well, I think you can infer it through the inverse.
Okay.
Um,
But I think it's also good to be said
sure.
because
I
it can
think
just
I
lead us
think
in
it's
a
realistic to expect somebody who is actively in the church. Period. By
yes.
actively, I'm talking like you don't say, "Oh, does this person go here still?" That's not actively.
Yeah.
That doesn't work like that. Or if people don't know that you even go to that church, I wouldn't call that an
I
active
disagree with
member.
that. Not that they shouldn't, just that I feel like the majority of the girls that I would meet probably aren't as active in the church as you or me or as Myrna is.
Sure.
Would you date them?
Hmm. If they didn't want to go to church and like
Well,
if they were struggling with going to
the
church every
current
week,
state that they're in right now, you just said most of them aren't active. So
I
would you
said most
date?
of them aren't.
Aren't, right?
Right.
So would
Yeah.
you date them?
So
If
you
they're not
wouldn't date
active in
them.
the church,
So
no,
it's a no.
no,
No.
can't.
I think it's realistic to expect somebody to be on
But I think that's something that you should want though. So let's go
Yeah.
ahead.
to
Yeah.
like if at least they're not a virgin to at least be born again.
Born again virgin?
Yeah, born again virgin. I guess is the
Mhm.
way to say it. I don't know. I think that's definitely realistic.
Mhm.
I think it's realistic for somebody to want to date somebody who knows who they are, meaning
Mhm.
that they. No, I'm not the type of person who would go on a mission trip for a year. I'm
Yeah.
just not. Like
Yeah.
that's not for everybody. I'm not called to that. If that's not you, I get that.
Yeah.
I think it's realistic to expect somebody to know who they are, meaning that if somebody's like, I'm not really sure, whatever, to be like, that's a no for me, dog, type thing. Where some people might be like, but she's cute and you guys like this together and you like that together. It's like, well, she doesn't even know what she wants. I think it's realistic to walk away if they don't know what they want or know where they're going. I think it's also realistic to step away or not consider somebody who doesn't acknowledge and works on their faults. So somebody has any integrity to be like, hey, like I messed up or something like that. Because everybody messes up. Nobody bats 1,000, right? Everybody bats something. I mean, even in baseball, if you hit 3 out of 10, you're considered Hall of Fame. So
I think it's realistic to be treated like with respect
Yeah.
and
yes,
Human
dignity
decency.
in your relationship and not be like demeaned or
Mhm.
like lorded
disrespected,
over
yeah,
by your partner. 'Cause I know a lot of
commanded.
people struggle with that. Like on either side, like man or
Yeah.
female, like they struggle with being respected in their relationship. I think that's something that you should expect and that should be a non-negotiable, you know.
I think for me, as an Adventist single woman, I think it's realistic to expect commitment. Like when you're dating, like there's the other perspective of like dating multiple people. But I think
As in like talking or actually dating?
as in
It's like they and I are
dating.
dating. Do you mean as in?
I don't know. I don't like using the word talking much because to me it's the same. But like, I think for like,
exclusive or non-exclusivity, there's a difference.
I
Right?
think to expect like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like to be dating one person at a time.
Okay.
Especially like if it's a courtship situation, even if it's in the beginning, it might be a little controversial, but that's mine.
I would say, and since you bring Adventists in, then we should probably bring more of that in. I think it's realistic to not expect sex in the relationship being sexually
Yes.
active.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Agreed.
and it's many acts and it's many forms.
Yeah,
Yes.
like, or
right?
sexually active, and just knowing that we should both save ourselves for marriage and,
Oh,
invite God into the center of it. So we don't
yeah.
become
Like
too
the world.
objective. Well, not like the world, but just in our own relationship so we can see each other for who they truly are and not be
Going
so
off
Agreed.
of that one,
objective.
Agreed.
I think it's unrealistic, even in the church, to think that the other person's definition of sexual intimacy is the
It's
same.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
We have
there's
to talk
difference
about
right
that.
here, right?
Yeah.
because
So
some people are just like, oh, we're not having sex, but like,
Can we
there's
make
so
out?
much out there. You can like, there's so much like there's making out. There's like a hand in the shirt. Like you touch in body parts. Like there's dry humping. There's like
Dry humping.
controversial ones, sleeping in the same bed. So like it's unrealistic to expect that the other Adventist individual has the same definition of that. but it's realistic to expect no sex penetration, at least to me.
Yeah, something to add. Definitely has to talk about that. Like, what's too much, and yeah, what isn't?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Agree
Uh,
to agree.
yeah, I knew one couple. They didn't kiss until their wedding day.
And I feel like that would be an extreme to
It
me.
is extreme.
I think that's unrealistic.
That's unrealistic, yeah. But hey, they're still married,
But
still doing
it
good.
can be unrealistic. It all comes down to their personal boundaries, right? Because with time, we have different experiences, right? And let's say she was an OnlyFans girl. She's more in tune when, like, even just a kiss could arouse some things, and they're saving each other for marriage. So, like, to us, that may look extreme, but maybe we haven't had those sexual experiences in the past that, like, now if it happens now, like, it'll take you back to the dark ages or something.
So to speak, yeah.
So I think when it comes down to unrealistic or realistic, it all comes down to communication. Because apart from, like, human dignity or respect and all these things, a lot of these things need to be communicated. A lot of the times we don't communicate and then we just expect it. And that's wrong. And that's setting yourself up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
And the only person at the end of the day who we can expect everything from is from Jesus. Everybody else, apart from, like, even respect, like, you can't really expect much from other people, other than just have your own personal standards, boundaries, and work from there and communicate.
And I think circling back to another point you made in an earlier episode, I think it's unrealistic now to expect to date somebody close to you. I think it's more
Oh, yeah.
realistic to expect to date somebody who's going to be long
Not dating a
distance.
friend.
Yeah, or somebody who's in your immediate circle, right?
Mm.
I think it's more realistic to expect, like, okay, I'm going to have to do long distance realistically for, I guess, the majority of Adventists. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
potentially.
potentially. All right, Mike, would you lead us out in prayer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Dear Lord, I want to thank you again for allowing us to just take time out of our day to, do this podcast. We hope that the things we say, even though we're not experts or, super, super experienced in these matters, Lord, that, you still give us the principles and the examples and the lessons in the Bible and from life to, teach us how to prepare ourselves for dating, to actually be in a relationship, and the steps we take to eventually have that one goal of settling down and finding someone to spend the rest of our lives with. So just continue to be with us and everyone who's listening. Continue to guide their steps, and that they use the Word of God as their guide and their source for all things relationship. Because I know a lot of young people out there are looking and waiting and hoping and doing their hardest to try to do things the right way, and the enemy constantly wants to trip us up. The Lord, but help us to just first and foremost, our relationship with you is what matters, and that everything from that, or once we have that established, everything else in life will take hold and settle into place. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen.